and here. Now we're going to write a two-column proof, okay? So the first thing is you're given that MK bisects segment JL, okay? So we're going to write down our given. Now, since it bisects it, it's a segment, and when a segment bisects a segment, then the next thing you know is you always have a midpoint. Well, MK bisects JL, well, they cross at point N, so that tells us N is the midpoint of JL, okay? From here, since N is the midpoint, well, we know when something's the midpoint, it makes the segments congruent. So now we can say JN is congruent to segment NL by our definition of midpoint, okay? When you state that, we want to go ahead and mark our picture. And from here, there's nothing else we can go from that one given. So we're going to move on to the second given. Now you know that JL bisects MK. That is the opposite of MK bisects JL, so those would together make a biconditional, since the conditional and the converse would both be true. And since we know that, once again, if JL bisects MK, then N is the midpoint of MK. And again, your reason is we know it because of the bisector, so it is definition of a segment bisecting. So if we have a midpoint, then once again, we know that NM has to be congruent to NK. Your reason is definition of midpoint. Okay? From here, we're told that JK is congruent to ML. Go ahead and mark my picture. JK is congruent to ML. Now, we have a lot of things congruent. Let's go ahead and look really quick. Our ultimate goal, and I would use a highlighter or a color or something to say there's a lot of triangles in here. We're supposed to prove two triangles congruent, but it could easily be easy to get mixed up. So I would go ahead and highlight. We're trying to get JKN, this triangle, congruent to triangle LMN. So those are the two triangles we're supposed to prove congruent. Well, for them to be congruent, all their sides have to be congruent and all their angles have to be congruent, because congruent triangles have all congruent parts. Okay, their corresponding parts are congruent in congruent triangles. Okay, so from here, we've stated our next given. Our last given is going to be JK is parallel to ML. Okay, so from here we can go ahead and mark that picture. And now you're probably wondering, why do we need to know that JK is parallel to ML? Well, what we want to do is when you have parallel lines are here and here. And let's go ahead and put in our transversal. Because if those two lines are parallel, first we could look at this transversal right here. And now it's a little bit easier to see that based on that transversal and those two lines are parallel, and we want to look at angles in our triangles we need. Well, isn't this angle an alternate interior angle with this angle? Yeah. So we know that if the lines are parallel, those are congruent. So our next statement is we can come down here and say angle JKM is congruent to angle LMK, because parallel lines imply alternate interior angles congruent. Okay, now from here, let's come back up to our picture. We still have the same parallel lines, but what if we moved our transversal and let JL be the transversal? Then don't we also have this alternate interior angle and this alternate interior angle? And once again, the lines are still parallel. It's the angle between the parallel line and the transversal on both sides. So we could say angle KJL is congruent to angle LM, or congruent to angle MLJ. Okay, so angle KJL is congruent to angle MLJ. And our reason is because parallel lines imply that alternate interior angles are congruent once again. So from here, now we can see all of our sides, our corresponding sides are all congruent. 2 of our angles are congruent. We only have 1 more left. Well, you can see that this angle right here, isn't it a vertical angle with this angle right here? Yeah, and vertical angles are always congruent, so angle JNK is congruent to angle LNM. From here, when you look at your picture, we can see that we have all the corresponding angles and all the corresponding sides congruent. So now we can say that those 2 triangles are congruent by the definition of congruent triangles.